Hello, this is the second part of the 6.01 video, A Changing Mood. And let's finish up the lesson reading and then we'll go on to the activities. The neoconservatives. Reagan also received report from thinkers and writers sometimes called neoconservatives. Neo means new. Some prominent neoconservatives were former liberals who had come to believe that Lyndon Johnson's Great Society had resulted in a wasteful bureaucracy that encouraged dependency on government handouts and discouraged free enterprise. Much like the conservatives of the early 20th century, the neocons supported the idea of a small federal government, lower taxes, and little regulation of business. The neoconservatives also supported a strong military and a tough foreign policy. In the 1980s, they advocated a muscular foreign policy and the defeat of international communism. And that's where we're going to stop for today's lesson reading. Now we're going to go back and make sure that you've checked your answers on the reading guide with the lesson answer key and get that completed. And then now we need to read Winning the Vote online and complete the Electoral College in the United States activity. Election of 1980. In mid-1979, frustrated Americans overlooked President Carter's achievement in foreign policy and blamed him for the country's economic decline. The upbeat message of Ronald Reagan, Carter's primary challenger in the 1980 presidential election, resonated with many American voters alarmed by the economic slump and disillusioned by the legacy of Vietnam, Watergate, and the Iran hostage crisis. Heading into the election, John Anderson, a liberal Republican congressman, also entered the field as an independent third-party candidate. Anderson attracted some Democratic voters. In the end, Reagan won the election with 489 electoral votes to Carter's 49. Anderson received no electoral votes. What is an electoral vote? Read on to learn about the system by which presidents and vice presidents are elected. Who really elects the president? Technically speaking, ordinary American citizens don't elect their president on election day. So what are they doing when they go to the polls? Each citizen's vote at the polls helps determine who will be part of a group called the electors. The electors vote for the vote for president and vice president a few weeks after election day. The group of electors is known as the Electoral College, and their votes are called electoral votes. The Constitution gives every state the same number of electoral votes as the number of senators and representatives that state has in Congress. Every state has 2 senators, but its number of representatives is based on the population of the state. So the larger a state's population, the more electoral votes it has. Political parties and electoral votes. The political parties in each state choose people to serve as their electors. We usually think of the United States as having 2 political parties, Democratic and Republican. But since all political ideas are legal in the United States, there are actually several parties. In recent years, elections have included candidates from the Libertarian Party, the Green Party, the Reform Party, and even the Communist Party. Several weeks before Election Day, each party that has a candidate running for office chooses a set of electors. In December, after Election Day, the electors whose candidates won in each state get together and vote for those candidates. The votes are then sealed and sent to the U.S. Senate. Popular versus electoral vote. In early January, the electoral votes are open and read before both houses of Congress. Most of the time, the candidate who wins the state's popular vote, which means gets the most votes from the citizens of that state, gets all the state's electoral votes. The candidate who has the most electoral votes is declared the winner, as long as that candidate gets at least half of the country's electoral votes plus 1, or an absolute majority. And if we open up splitting electoral votes here, electors in 3 states, Michigan, Maine, and Nebraska, have the option of casting their votes for different candidates rather than the winner of their state's popular vote. They may each vote for the winner of the popular vote in their congressional district. So far, however, Michigan and Nebraska are the only states that have split their electoral vote between different candidates. The Electoral College. In most states, the candidate who wins the state's popular vote gets all of the state's electoral votes. But here's what that means mathematically. A candidate can win the most votes from citizens all over the country, the popular vote, but not win the most electoral votes. Then that candidate loses the election. How can that happen? Click the Electoral College in the United States to see some examples of how the Electoral College works. And here's an example of Rutherford B. Hayes in 1876 lost the popular vote but won the election. I was waiting for this to load. The Electoral College. Okay, we have to hit the beeping sound button here.
Each citizen's vote on election day helps determine who will be part of a group of people called electors. The group of electors is known as the Electoral College, and their votes are called electoral votes. The Constitution gives every state the same number of electoral votes as the number of senators and representatives that state has in Congress. Every state has 2 senators, but its number of representatives is based on the population of the state. So the larger the state's population, the more electoral votes it has.
So, and then you can see in orange, those are the bigger states: New York, Florida, Texas, and California, especially. Everybody wants to win California.
Most of the time, the candidate who wins a state's popular vote, in other words, all of the votes of the citizens of that state, gets all of the state's electoral votes. For example, if 2,500,000 residents of Texas voted for Republican Jones and 1,500,000 voted for Democrat Smith, only the 34 Republican electors in Texas would get to cast electoral votes, and the state's electoral vote would go to Republican Jones. Electors in 3 states, Michigan, Maine, and Nebraska, have the option of casting their electoral votes for different candidates rather than the winner of the state's popular vote. They may each vote for the winner of the popular vote in their congressional district. So far, however, Michigan and Nebraska are the only states that have split their electoral vote between different candidates. This map represents the outcome of the 1980 election. In the states in which Reagan won the popular vote, the red states, Republican electors got to vote. In the states in which Carter won the popular vote, the blue states, Democratic electors got to vote. In the end, Reagan received 489 electoral votes, Carter received 49, and Anderson received none. But here's the really strange thing about the Electoral College system. A candidate might get the most votes from U.S. citizens, the popular vote, but not get the most electoral votes. Then the candidate loses the election. How in the world can that happen? Look at the data from the election of 1876. Samuel Tilden received more popular votes than Rutherford Hayes, but Hayes received more electoral votes and won the election. Because each state's number of electors is based on that state's number of senators and representatives, the larger a state's population, the more electoral votes the state has. Today, the total number of electoral votes in the country is 538. To win a presidential election, a candidate needs to receive at least 270 electoral votes. Let's take your knowledge of the Electoral College one step further and look at a hypothetical election. Here are the 11 states with the largest populations and, therefore, the most electoral votes. Suppose Republican candidate Barrett, Democratic candidate Gordon, and Green Party candidate Newton are running for president. What if Barrett wins the popular vote in the 11 most populous states by a slim margin, but loses the popular vote in the rest of the states by a large margin? Click the Check Answer button when you have the answer. Even though Republican Barrett lost the popular vote of the entire country by a large margin, he won the popular vote in the 11 most populous states and thus received all of those states' electoral votes.
And that is all. That's where it ends there, showing that hypothetical election. Okay, so then last thing you have to do is complete the 6.01 checkpoint. Good luck on that, and see you next time.